All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 2030 Podcast, Facebook Live, YouTube stream, Twitter Live. We are coming at you hot again. I'm your host, Allensaakyan. I am with Kevin Perrott. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks, Al. Good to be here.
I'm really happy to have Kevin here. Kevin has been teaching me a lot about aging. We've been talking a lot about kind of like the philosophy and the wisdom behind this topic and how it can be applied to society to build a better world together. And we're going to jump into this right away. Aging sucks. Why the hell does aging suck?
Coming at it from the position of somebody who's over 50 years old, I can guarantee you that there's very few people over 50 who would not agree with me. Aging sucks. And as you get older, aging is just this far off thing that eventually somebody tells you you look old, but there's pain that comes along with this. And
Yep.
it is certainly a challenge to be, given a diagnosis with some kind of age-related condition, something which I had the misfortune of going through. But so I'm a cancer survivor, and cancer was just one age-related disease, and age-related diseases are related by these basic processes that go along with aging. Aging sucks, but there's nothing we can really do about it. So people sort of make a friend of aging, and they manage their terror of getting older and dying and getting sick because there's nothing else you can do. So you make a friend of your enemy. It's sort of like Stockholm syndrome. We're all sort of being held hostage by this process, and we really don't have anything else we can do about it. So we pretend it's okay. We pretend that there's something called healthy aging when actually that's just an oxymoron. There's no such thing as healthy aging. You talk to a young child and you point out the person with the walker over in the corner and you say, does that look healthy to a child? The child is very clear that is not a healthy thing. So, but we're starting to be able to do something about aging now. So we can actually start saying that it sucks pretty openly.
Yes. And those examples are really true. We've all had somebody in our lives, our friend or family, go through something where, and we'll touch on this later, but when people turn in a moment's time from healthy to a patient. And that is a serious issue in today's world, and we can change that by decreasing the amount of time that actually happens. And healthy aging is an oxymoron. We can now tune into and understand the code of existence, of the physics and math of the world, of the biology of the world. So why can't we figure this out? Why can't we live longer till we're 120, 150? How much more economic impact would that bring? How much more would you be able to pass time in your life doing what you truly care about? Some of my favorite friends here says, Cosmo, nice to see you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Lindsay's also tuned in. So how about we jump into what the hell is terror management theory and how does that apply to aging?
So I've often told people that with the dawn of time came this awareness of aging because humans don't have sharp teeth, they don't have big claws, so evolutionarily speaking, we developed a big brain. And this big brain is very useful, it's very flexible, it can remember things and it can use memories of those things to predict the future, and that's all great and fine and dandy when you're trying to predict the next, fruit, bounty coming off the tree down the road. But it also, with that awareness of time passing, you also know that there will come a time when you will get old and you will die, just like your parents, just like your grandparents. So with this awareness, this intellectual capacity to remember things, we know that we're going to die in the future. And millennia ago in human evolution, this was dealt with by creating multiple escape routes from this horrific fate, that we don't really die. We go on, there's an afterlife and a whole bunch of other things, the metaphysical concepts. You don't have animals like dogs and cats and those who live in the moment really worried too much about death and dying. They just be and they just do, and these processes just happen. It's only humans with this awareness that have this problem with knowing that they're going to be dead someday. So that's managing your terror, and terror management of fear of your mortality is really central to pretty much all of human endeavor: religion, culture, civilizations, art, intellectual pursuits. They're all basically, we're trying to create copies of ourselves, who we are within reality, by creating works of art and maybe works and books, these types of products, so that we will continue to go on even though after we may be gone someday.
And so the whole idea that we just get so anxious about death and that we've just become okay with the idea of dying.
Mm.
We're now managing this terror of death, and we see so many people that are worried about what they've done in their life or on their way to death. Have I done everything that I've wanted to do? And oh my goodness, my family and what's going to happen past me. And so a way to get people out, so you guys call it at SENS, you guys call it the pro-aging trance,
Yeah.
is what people are in.
Yeah.
And how do we get people out of this trance? One of the ways that we just talked about it was asking people these questions. Do you like living? Yes. Do you want to die? No. Do you love your parents? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want them to die? No.
No.
So do you think anything can be done about this aging process? And why not start more conversation around the world about what we can do about the aging process?
Mm-hmm. Well, most people, up until now, science has really offered very little in the way of optimism that we can do anything about the aging process. But in the mid-1980s, they were able to tweak a single gene in a worm, in a biological model of aging, and they got it to double its lifespan. And that really turned the whole field on its head. Even the people who studied aging, the biogerontologists at that point in time, didn't think anything could be done about aging. They were just studying it. It was this complicated process, random. It was hard to say what disease a person would get. But with a single gene change, they were able to double the lifespan of an organism. And then they used same mutations, and they were able to do this in flies and mice. And then they studied people who were over 100 and 110, and they found some patterns of there. There's an awful lot of optimism now that we can take the blueprint that we're born with, the genetic blueprint we're born with, and we can optimize it and slow down at least our aging process and our deterioration, and get an awful lot of more horsepower and more healthy time. And then after that, we now have stem cells and other types of technologies which promise to repair the damage that eventually, no matter how well you look after yourself and you listen to, the advice of your grandma to get your sleep, get your exercise, you have good relationships and these sorts of things, no matter how well you look after yourself, you're still going to fall apart. And we need these other reparative types of strategies that SENS Research Foundation and the Buck Institute and a number of other institutes are working on.
So these the example that I learned from you guys at SENS was about the vehicle. You would have a vehicle that would just be driven for 100,000 miles, and then you'd kind of trash it and get another car. Now versus if at every 1,000 miles as you're driving the car, you stop it in a shop, you go and do tweaks on it to put it back to its prime shape, drive the next 1,000 miles, prime shape, drive the next 1,000 miles, the car will last for over 100 years. Now, is that true about the human body? Do we come in and do tweaks when we're 13 and tweaks when we're 26 and tweaks when we're 39 and bring the homeostatic capacity back, restore that? What are those things that you were talking about, optimizing the blueprint? Yeah, your strategies at SENS, which is strategies for engineered negligible senescence. What?
Right.
Talk about.
So there's, in optimization, you can get your exercise, you can eat properly, and you can do all of these things, and your blueprint will operate as well as it possibly can, but it will still accumulate damage, and you will eventually need to get some damage repair.
And the damage is caused by metabolism, and then metabolism causes pathology.
Exactly. So one of the types of damage that accumulates in the body with time is proteins. Proteins that don't get degraded, especially in a modern environment where we have all the food that we want. Our bodies don't have to recycle the proteins. They just continually have enough energy to make new ones. So when you have a lot of food around, your bodies are very terrible at recycling old proteins. So they tend to accumulate, and that's a hallmark of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and an awful lot of other degenerative diseases. So if we can find some way of recycling these proteins and degrading these proteins in the cells themselves, as they are as where they sit, then we will be able to prevent them from rising to levels that cause pathology. So that's getting to the damage before it causes pathology, but after the damage is already produced, because you don't necessarily want to slow down the rate at which damage accumulates. Because, for instance, glucose needs to be burnt in sugars, and the actual burning of the glucoses creates sparks or oxidative stress. And these sparks will land on different cellular components and cause those components to get damaged. But if you don't necessarily want to slow down the rate that damage is occurring, because the sugar is being burnt for a reason. And if you start interfering with how quickly the sugar is being burnt, you may be affecting how quickly you think, how quickly your muscles work, how much you might have some side effects. So the goal of SENS Research Foundation and the damage repair paradigm is to let the damage accumulate as quickly as it normally would, but then go in there and actually clean it up before it turns into pathology.
Okay, and now you just mentioned one of the many ways, right, of the strategies. So what are some of the other strategies?
Okay, so repairing, so once the damage is accumulating, you can have two types of damage. You can have damage that occurs to the information molecules inside the cell, so the DNA molecules and the RNA molecules. You can have damage that accumulates to the three-dimensional structures that the DNA produces, say the proteins and the other cellular components. Now, strategies for dealing with those damage, like antibody therapies, can get in there and clean up the proteins that accumulate. You can also potentially do gene therapy that would help ramp up the recycling of these proteins. But another major form of damage with multicellular animals especially is that our tissues, when we're young, like if I took your kidney, for instance, and ripped it out of your body and bounced it on the floor, it would be a 24-year-old kidney. It's going to have a lot of cells, and it's going to be very elastic and very dense, and it's going to do a good job. Now, if you took my kidney and you did the same thing, I'm going to have about half the number of cells in my kidney as you would.
You would have half the number of cells.
My kidney would be half as dense as yours, but if you look at my markers for kidney function in my blood, they would be fine. They would be fine. So, but if you were given an environmental challenge, a toxin, for instance, your kidneys would be able to handle it, but my kidney probably would get overwhelmed. So the reserve capacity. So what we need to do in aging is we need to tell the stem cells that are sitting in the kidney or wherever they are, and we need them to do a better job at replacing the cells that normally die every day and get turned over. So that's one, and that strategy is, we can call it the stem cell whisperer, and you can basically talk to the stem cells within a person's body where they sit and just get them to do a better job, because they start to get a little sloppy and a little lazy as time goes on. But we're finding out that we know what those signals are and what those factors are, and we're going to be able to do a much better job of that.
So this is, again, that's sens.org. SENS.org. They have they have all of their strategies for engineering negligible senescence all on the site. Check them out, learn more about them. Kevin is a co-founder and treasurer of SENS. So now this whole focus on what the future holds, we have, this is now the golden age of biology and medicine. This is a whole new paradigm. And we'd live in a really great world if we didn't have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, heart disease. So, and you kind of listed some of the ways that we could eventually have a world that's not like that. Now that is like that. So what are some of your thoughts about this new era? How do we galvanize people together to inspire them about this golden age of biology and medicine?
Well, it's very rational, because the people that are the most concerned with biology and medicine are people who are sick, or people who know people who are sick.
Yes.
So when it all comes down to, again, probably the best experience of my life was getting cancer. So, I keep saying I wish I could just not give people cancer, but I wish I could just take what I learned from getting cancer and provide that experience to wisdom. People.
Yeah.
Because nothing is more important than your health. And when that goes, life really becomes not an awful lot of fun.
And then you start learning everything about what's happening to you medically.
Exactly.
Just like you would about your parents, your friends that are going through the same thing.
So this new era that's coming, there's an awful lot of suffering in the world. That's one thing that was very clear to me when I was
Yes.
in the hospital. I was in a room of people who were sick, in a hospital of people who were sick, and I didn't even really realize that there were sick people in the world until I went through this experience.
Just the idea of eradicating suffering sounds so good, and it
Doesn't
feels
it,
so good. Yes.
And that's what we're going to do.
Yes, we
We're going
are.
to do it because everybody's suffering, and there's going to be an awful lot more people who are suffering, really an awful lot. And that energy that we can use, that suffering is a potential energy that we can tap into to drive their cures and their therapies. But we need to use a health technology development paradigm which serves the customer, which serves the consumer. Most of the time, patients at the end of the pipeline of whatever it is, they think that there's a cavalry coming, and there isn't a cavalry coming. Nobody cares as much about your health as you should.
As you should, yeah.
And there is no Department of Cures, which is something that Michael J. Fox was telling people who have Parkinson's, and when he started up his own nonprofit, and they fund an awful lot of research. He says there isn't a Department of Cures. If you want these breakthroughs to be made, you have to take responsibility for making them happen.
Just like Elon Musk did.
Exactly.
You want to privatize and get somewhere faster like Mars, or you want to privatize and get electric vehicles all over the streets, you have to do it yourself, just like you guys did at SENS. The NIH is really underfunded beyond belief, and we need more private people like you guys caring about this and inspiring more people to understand that, for fuck's sakes, at any moment you could discover that you have some sort of cancer, that you are unhealthier than you thought, and you could feel great about it, and all of a sudden you become an expert in that field, and then you want to help prevent other people from experiencing that same thing, postpone, offset.
I want to save my parents' lives. That's really the thing.
I do too.
And selfishly, if it's in time for them, guess
and your
what?
parents' lives.
It'll be in time for me too. So I can be all altruistic about this and say I really do want to do something for my mom and my dad. I love them dearly. They're great contributors to their communities. They're wonderful people, just as everybody's parents probably are. And there's a whole older generation out there of wisdom and experience that as slowly the lights are getting dimmer on them, we need that wisdom and experience in this planet to try to get rid of some of the immaturity that we're subjected to. Our governments and the way we're average mental age, I think, for the human species of about 3. We don't know how to clean up after ourselves. We hit each other over the head and steal each other's stuff.
Still.
And it's just awful. So I think, it's a survival thing for humanity, that if all of our problems are right now, the most pressing problems were created by a collective, our species. It wasn't one person, and the solution is not going to be from one person or just a few people.
Yep.
The solutions are all going to have to come from everybody being synergistic and cooperating and working together. And older people and women, for instance, have an easier time of that. But we are all faced with this. We're up against it, and we have the technology now. We have these opportunities. We just need to find the hearts and the minds. And I believe that the patient groups are obviously the people that are going to drive this an awful lot to begin with. But they'll need to have healthy counterparts who understand that minimizing the time to the development of these therapies for aging and age-related disease, minimizing time is the only thing that's important. We can always make money, but we cannot yet make time.
So maximize time that we have on the planet.
Yeah.
And this is a conversation with Kevin Perrott about aging sucking, and about how we've gotten into the aging trance. It's time to get out of the aging trance. It's time to work together. You don't want your parents to die. You don't want to die. You love your parents. You love yourself. Let's bring more value to the world over time. Go to sens.org, check out what they're up to, and focus on this new health technology paradigm and get people excited and get them together, get them rallied.
Yep.
Any last thoughts?
There are just a few people, or a few places on this planet that have this kind of focus. SENS is one of them. The Buck Institute in
Yep.
Nevada, which is where I'm currently doing some research, is also highly motivated to translating the current promise of technology into therapies and cures. So, and it's all up. It's all up to you, really. It's up
Yes.
to you. It's up to us. And so, let's reach out to each other and let's create those organizations and relationships that are going to get this job done. Let's not wait.
Exactly. And thank you guys for tuning in. And like Kevin said, go and inspire other people. If this catalyzed some change in you, please share this with other people around you in your communities, your families. And then lastly, we can make that change in the world together. Thanks for tuning in across all of our different platforms, 2030 Podcast, Facebook Live, Twitter Live, and YouTube. Thank you very much. And we'll see y'all later. Bye.